What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And we have ourselves a jam-packed show, as always, as the last week of the NCAA Men's Volleyball regular season didn't disappoint, as Purdue Fort Wayne toppling McKendree in the MIVA quarterfinals. What a great job the Mastodons have done. They advance to the semifinals, where they will face Loyola of Chicago. How about USC going on the road and knocking off Grand Canyon? They are the number 2 seed of the MPSF tournament, behind UCLA. Can the Trojans actually pull off some Trojan magic in the tournament? And how about USC's beach volleyball team? 4-0 last weekend, defeating UCLA, Florida State, LMU, and Cal Poly. And we also got some pro beach volleyball to talk about as well. So hand me a volleyball, set the net, because I'm about to serve you all some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. I hope you all are having a great Monday. Hope you all had a great Easter as well. I didn't really celebrate Easter just because I was pretty much by myself. All my family had pretty much had things to do, but I was still just chilling out, resting at home, just recharging the batteries after a busy week. But without any further delay, let's get on into that volleyball action. But first and foremost, we have a word from our sponsors. IE Sports Radio is proud to call the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get the second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, and on Facebook by typing the word Southern California, then Warriors. IE Sports Radio is available on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing the word IE, then Sports, then Radio. And then they also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go to there, you'll see a Patreon link starting off at $5 a month. This donation will get you a shout-out from all of our shows. I believe we are at 29 shows, if not 30, because we are growing like weeds. Other higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on IE Sports Radio's flagship show, The Defining Moment with Larry B., which aired yesterday. Because for the past 7.5 years, as we're approaching the 8-year anniversary, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, IE Sports Radio has been continuing to be by the fans and for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you, everyone, for being a full-on supporter for IE Sports Radio, and thank you to everyone for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Big shout to Bay Area Raised Apparel and Marcus Losgreat, the Patreon supporters. We appreciate your support. And the 2022 NFL Draft is right around the corner, and IE Sports Radio is excited to announce its 3rd annual mock draft challenge. The rules are simple. Predict all 32 first-round picks. No trades, no modifications, no tricks, none of that. The participant who has the best mock draft or the most accurate mock draft will receive a shout from all of IE Sports Radio shows and a choice of an IE Sports Radio hat or t-shirt. For more information or to submit your mock draft, please reach out to Mike Pat at @letsone_IESR on Twitter. His Twitter name will be in the description of the show. And best of luck to everyone. And then we also got to give one more shout out to @Marcy_Vargas88. She is a Green Bay Packers fan hailing from Mexico. Like I said, IE Sports Radio has been growing all over the world, and we're global, just like DJ Khaled. But I digress. Now let's get on to the NCAA men's volleyball action, as we have some action in the chat room. We had Davidson Crooks in the chat room. We had Mike Pat in the chat room, and we also had Gina G and Adam Karnick. Mike Pat says, "Is it time for the best volleyball podcast on the internet already?" Indeed it is. Indeed it is. And Gina says, "Have a great show. Best volleyball show on the planet." I appreciate you, Gina. And Mike Pat says that Gina is one-upping him. And it is true. Gina says, she does say that every show. And I appreciate all your support, Gina, as well as you, Mike, Adam, and Davidson. And Adam says he loves the team named the Chicago Untouchables. Well, I will be talking. There won't be too much discussion about them just because the NVA wasn't on this week. They go on every, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks. So, unfortunately, they won't be back until, the beginning of May. But, they'll probably have their full team by then. But, like I told you in the chat room of your show, Chi-Town Weekly, which you did an excellent job, Loyola of Chicago helped salvage a great weekend of NCAA men's volleyball and volleyball in general in the city of Chicago. Now let's jump on into the NCAA men's volleyball action. So, starting off with the NCAA men's volleyball action, we had Cal State Northridge, or CSUN as most everyone calls it, taking on number 3 Long Beach State on Friday. It was very simple for Long Beach State. Win and you're the number 1 seed, and you're the regular season conference champion by way of tiebreaker. Lose and you have to wait another day to clinch everything. CSUN is locked in as the 6th seed of the Big West Conference tournament, as they can only hope to gain some momentum going into said tournament. Set 1. Through the first 20 points, neither team led by as many as one, as both teams were basically feeling each other out and they were going back and forth. Trailing 15-12 at the media timeout, CSUN scored the next 2 points to pull within 1, but Long Beach State went on a 4-0 run and dashed any hopes of a possible CSUN comeback, as Long Beach State led by as many as 7, and they took the first set 25-20 off of a kill from Shane Holdaway. Holdaway was actually back in the lineup at the middle blocker position after missing the past couple games, according to Coach Alan Knipe. More on that later. Set 2. Much like the first set, through the first 20 points, it was tied up at 10-10. The only difference is that CSUN actually led. The Matadors led 15-11 at the media timeout when Long Beach State cut the lead in half with 2 straight points. But they couldn't get any closer as CSUN finished the set on a 10-3 run, taking set 2 25-16 and tying the match at 1-1. Something that picked up for the Matadors that set was their serving. They got quite a bit of good serves in that set, as they had, I believe it was Griffin Walters. Yes, Griffin Walters was the one that was basically doing the damage when it came to serving. But actually it was mainly Ryan DeWeese. DeWeese was the culprit when it came to serving up a storm in that set, as he had 4 service aces on the night, but more on that later. Set 3, Long Beach State led 11-9, only to see CSUN go on a 3-0 run to take the lead at 12-11. After that, it was a tug of war on who can keep the lead. It was tied up at 15-15 when CSUN went on a 5-1 run to go up 20-16. But Long Beach wasn't ready to surrender that set just yet. They trailed 21-18 when Long Beach State got within 1 with back-to-back kills. But CSUN rattled off the last 4 points to go up 25-20, putting them up 2-1 in the match and having all the Matador fans something to cheer about, because obviously CSUN has had a rough season. They were dead last they were currently dead last in the Big West Conference standings. They know that they're the 6th seed, and it's just been a roulette of players coming and going, and obviously players being healthy and whatnot. So I'll be talking about that more in a little bit. But Long Beach knew they needed to get something going. At the time when Long Beach was down 2-1 to CSUN, Hawaii just won their match against UC Irvine, and a loss for Long Beach State would keep Hawaii in the hunt for being the top seed in the Big West Conference Tournament. But then set 4, it was close early on. CSUN found itself up 11-9, and it appeared to be danger zone time for Long Beach State. But Alan Knipe, being the smart coach that he was, won a challenge for Long Beach State as it was 12-11, I want to say, where there was an inadvertent whistle, apparently, and the play was replayed. The point was replayed, and Long Beach State went from being down 12-10 overall to being up 15-13 at the media timeout. And Long Beach maintained its lead despite CSUN trying to get to as close as 1 at 20-19. But then the 4-0 run saw Long Beach State eventually taking the set 25-21, and ladies and gentlemen, we were going 5 sets. Now, going into this match, Long Beach State was 0-4 in matches that went 5 sets. All 4 of their losses this season had came in 5 sets. They lost to Penn State in 5 sets. They lost to UCLA in 5 sets. They lost to UC Irvine via a reverse sweep. And last weekend, they lost to UC San Diego. The last time Long Beach State had lost to back-to-back opponents that weren't of the same team was 2015 when they lost to USC and Pepperdine. Was this going to be the same thing? Was this going to be new history rewritten in a bad way? We shall see. Set 5. Long Beach State had an ideal start to the set as they scored the first 2 points of the set. And they eventually went up 7-3, and they eventually led 10-5. And it seemed as if Long Beach State was home free. However, to the credit of CSUN, they stayed within striking distance, went on a 6-1 run, and once down 5 in set 5, they tied it up at 11-11, and they eventually took their first lead of the set at 13-12 off of a kill from Daniel Wetter. Long Beach State did not have an answer for this cat in the middle. This guy really punished Long Beach State in the middle. And eventually, Griffin Walters gave CSUN its first match point at 14-13. But on the next point, and CSUN coach Jeff Campbell knew this, he was shouting to this team, middle, 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 middle. And that's where Long Beach State went to, as Shane Holdaway tied the setup at 14-14. And eventually Long Beach State got to its first match point at 15-14 via a kill from Alex Nikolov. CSUN tried to get to their best player, Kyle Hobus, who was having a monster game, but unfortunately he was blocked at the net, though I'm certain that ball didn't even clear the tape, as it most likely would have been challenged. Regardless, CSUN had a hitting error, and Long Beach State took set 5, 16-14, and ladies and gentlemen, they are your 2022 regular season Big West Conference champions, as they have locked up the number 1 seed in the Big West Conference Tournament, as it was a very ugly match for them. It was nowhere near pretty, but Long Beach State came out on top. As looking at the stats here, Long Beach State was led by Alex Nikolov and Spencer Olivier, who each had 19 kills. Olivier had a hitting percentage of .471, while Nikolov had a hitting percentage of .385. As a team, Long Beach State hit .347, which is pretty darn impressive. Their only bad set really came in set 3, and they didn't really hit too bad of a hitting percentage. They hit .226. But all in all, Long Beach State was resilient. They had 10 service aces as their serving really picked up. Their blocks weren't as effective. They only had 3 on the night. But their digging wasn't too bad, despite the number being very much in favor of CSUN. But mainly the offense was just clicking for Long Beach State, and how they were pretty much doing their thing with their pin hitters. They also got 10 kills from Clark Godbold, but they actually ran the middle more. That was kind of the key. Shane Holdaway had 8 kills in the middle. Like I said, he came back from not being in the lineup, according to Alan Knipe. And then Marc Moody, this was actually Long Beach State's senior night. He came in for Long Beach State in that 4th set, and he gave him a little bit of a spark. Yes, the numbers don't really show it, but he did come in and try to weather the storm for Long Beach State. I spoke with Alan Knipe and Marc Moody via a press conference talking about the win over CSUN, and also talking about Marc Moody being the only senior on Long Beach State's senior night.
All right, this is a question for Alan. Obviously, this was a barn burner, and you're now at halftime. Like, what's going to be the message to the entire team going into the final regular game of the season?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of things we realize we could have done better. Some of these, a couple of their guys had a really, really good night, so you got to give credit to it. They played hard. They do a good job training them. Jeff's doing a good job with that group, and they've had a couple of good wins. They had a good win lately against San Diego, and they came in and played hard. So credit to them. So we expect them to play like that again tomorrow night, and that's great because at this point in the season, every game's going to feel like that. So it's okay if it doesn't feel easy or come comfortably to you. And we've stressed on our guys all year that we can win in many different ways. We can win with our side-out offense, our blocking defense, our transition, just our side-out offense, whatever it takes. And I think we proved that to ourselves tonight. But there's a lot of things that we could probably do, especially in those second and third set, to make it a little bit easier. Because when you don't block a ton of balls in that second set and you're not digging a ton of balls, you can't miss a whole bunch of serves like we did either. And so we kind of were humming along and then stuck a wrench in our own spokes in that second set, not taking anything away from how Northridge played. So those are moments that you learn from, and you move on. And at this time of the season, it doesn't really matter if it's in 3 or in 4 or if it was sometimes pretty or ugly. The most important thing is finding ways to get the W and move on. And that's the message that'll be tomorrow night for tomorrow night.
Spencer Olivier added 3 service aces for Long Beach State, while Mason Briggs chipped in 13 digs as well as 4 assists. Olivier also chipped in 6 digs as well, and Alex Nikolov added 8 digs on his own as well, who also added 2 service aces. Simon Torwey was kind of an unsung hero, as he had 2 kills, and despite that, he had 2 service aces, and his serve is really tough if you're not prepared for it. Sometimes it could go long, it can go into the net or short. Either way, Simon Torwey has one of the best serves on Long Beach State. Him and Alex Nikolov make things really tough when it comes to the service line. So I spoke to Marc Moody about him being the only senior and him reflecting on his memories at Long Beach State and some of his best moments. And also Alan Knipe added to my question as well. So here's my question to Marc Moody, which was added to along with Alan Knipe.
It's a question for Marc. Obviously, it was senior night, and you being the lone senior on the team, you've had a lot of experiences with Long Beach State. Kind of reflect on what you've learned from Long Beach State men's volleyball, and what were some of your top moments or favorite moments?
There's a bunch of favorite moments. I think some obvious ones could be the championships, 2018, 2019, but I wouldn't say those are my ultimate favorite. I'd say just my favorite moments in general or just ones with the team. I think there's been a ton of lessons, not even just within volleyball, but within our culture and the way Coach teaches the game to us. There's more depth to it than just with volleyball. It goes into just life in general, how we respond to things, how we deal with frustration, leading into determination. You either choose one or the other, and ideally we want to choose determination. I think my 5 years being here, Spenny came in my freshman year too, so we've went through a lot together, and there's just been a ton of growth, not even just collectively, but even individually, as far as learning how to be a part of a team, how to, respond to things, how to communicate. And so there's that.
Let me add one thing to that. When you opened it up, it's important to talk about Marc. This is not just for Long Beach State, for all programs and all sports. This has been a difficult couple of years, and for these guys, it's more than just volleyball. they've been pulled out of their dorms, some of the guys on our team, and like many schools, I'm not saying that we're the only one, and life flipped upside down and hurry up, let's get back. We're going to start. We're not going to start. We are. We're not. There's no fans. There is fans. We're back. Coronavirus, we're shut down at the beginning of this season again. So it's been 3 seasons at some parts of all 3 of the last seasons affected by it. Last year we had no fall. We trained not one day in the fall. We trained not one day in January. It wasn't until February 16th that we trained. There's only so much you can really do on Zoom, and when you're coaching volleyball. But their resiliency and this, especially the guys that have been around a while, and Marc in particular, of staying positive and being upbeat and being a great teammate. Obviously, it has a lot of effect on our team. And he mentioned culture. Culture is something that's a sexy word to talk about all the time, or the hot word to talk about all the time, but to really believe it and live it and do it and be part of the design of it individually, as a coach and as a player, is a big deal. And when the biggest adversity, hopefully the biggest adversity that these guys have to face, or all of us have to face in their lifetime, hit them, they did what Marc just said. They chose determination over frustration and decided to make the most of what they could, and then really gratefully, with a lot of gratitude, grind through this year, knowing that it was, even though it was difficult at times so far, it's so much better than sitting behind a laptop in their room. So our older guys, our younger guys, all of them are leaders. Marc's shown so much growth as a person, as a leader on our team, and as a volleyball player. I couldn't be proud of him. And, I know he didn't start the match tonight. Doesn't matter if you start all the time. It matters how you finish and who finishes. And what a great story on senior night to come in and steady the ship and get the win in 5. So I just think it's important that we salute Marc. He's our only senior this year, but it's a really cool story, and I appreciate everything he's done and everything his family has done to commit to being here from Florida and being a massive part of our success over the last many years.
So that was my interview in the post-game press conference to Marc Moody and Alan Knipe. Great stuff that Alan just said right there. And he obviously talked about the past couple of years where everything got shut down, sports was shut down, everyone had to communicate via Zoom and whatnot. So all in all, it was great to see Marc getting a kill. And obviously Alan attained to saying he didn't start Marc Moody, but he came in and eventually he was able to serve a couple times, and he also, like I said, he got a kill. And that 4th set where Long Beach State needed that spark, he was able to deliver it to them. And that kill actually became the only kill for Marc, obviously, but it was the first point of the set. And like I said, early on, it was danger zone time for Long Beach State, but they were able to weather the ship and get out of there safe and sound with a W. I should also make note that Long Beach State won the second matchup against CSUN as the Beach swept the Matadors on the road in Northridge. Going back to this matchup, CSUN was led by Kyle Hobus, who had 21 kills, leading all players in that category. He also chipped in 12 digs, which he led CSUN in that category. Daniel Wetter, like I said, he had 16 kills. Long Beach State did not have too much of an answer for him. He hit 667. He had 0 hitting errors. So that's what I kind of meant when I said CSUN had to go to Daniel Wetter, because Long Beach State, I don't want to assume this, but I feel Long Beach State was kind of honing in on Kyle Hobus, considering Hobus is always the guy to watch for when you're facing CSUN. But then that opened up for Daniel Wetter as he did everything in his power to try to will CSUN to the win, and he tried to take some stress off of Hobus as well. As a team, CSUN hit a whopping 388. Like most of CSUN's stats, they pretty much outdid Long Beach State in, except for service aces. In terms of blocks, they had 6.5 blocks to Long Beach State's 3. They had 43 digs compared to Long Beach State's 35. CSUN hit 388 compared to Long Beach State's 347. CSUN's only bad hitting percentage came in set number 4 when they hit 273, but that's still rather an impressive hitting night for CSUN. I don't think they played that bad of a match. I think they proved to me, and I think they proved to everybody, that there is no such thing as an easy night when it comes to the Big West Conference in men's volleyball. And I walked away very impressed at what CSUN had shown me. And this, like I said, this is a young team. They're just as young as Long Beach State is. And the problem is that they didn't really have a starting lineup or a roster where everyone was on the court together. Like, there were either injuries happening, or maybe COVID happened, or anything happened. Either way, CSUN hasn't really had much of their entire roster on or in practice together or on the court together. So all in all, the fact that CSUN pushed number 3 Long Beach State to 5 sets is very impressive. On the road, mind you. Like, Long Beach State has only lost 1 home game, and that was to Penn State. The fact that CSUN nearly pulled off that win on the road just speaks to high volumes of how promising CSUN's future looks. I caught up with CSUN coach Jeff Campbell following his team's loss and speaking about the positives of what the Matadors have had this season and the positives of this match.
Okay. All right. So obviously, thrilling match. Went back and forth. Fell down by 5. Nearly came back and won it. Just fell a little bit short. What did you like out of your team in this match against Long Beach State?
We played loose. Part of our issue has been consistency. This is probably the most consistent match we've had over the course of 5 sets. So for us, that's a big deal. It's the consistency, and we've been playing really well at certain times, but just not over the course of an entire 5-set match. So this was great in that sense. We're disappointed that we lost, obviously, but hopefully we can snap back and get them tomorrow night when we're playing at CSUN.
Obviously, you have a young team with, I think, 1 or 2 seniors. Your team is mainly young. What could you say about this match and how much growth they developed in this match against the number 3 team in the nation?
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you're this young, it just takes time, and there's only so much you can do in practice. And you have to have real life experiences on the court in tight situations to really practice those situations. So I feel like we've gotten better every single week, and hopefully we can put it together tomorrow.
Kyle Hobus and Daniel Wetter, along with Griffin, have been some of your top hitters. What can you say about those 3 and the majority of your team and any other standouts?
So both those guys, when we have played well, when we're winning, they've played well. So, they're leaders. But when you look at our roster and the depth, they've actually practiced, you know what I mean, and competed over the last couple of years. Most of my other guys, I got 2 true freshmen out there that have never competed, never played at this level yet, and it just takes time. So I'm excited or happy that they're here and competing, but we just need to get more experience, and that'll come with time.
You obviously have one more match tomorrow against Long Beach State, but next week is the Big West Conference Tournament. What's it going to take to pull off a stunning run, kind of like what UC San Diego did last year?
If we play like we did tonight, we can beat any team. And so that's what we need to work on. We need to work on the consistency. If we can do that, we will be in good shape on a neutral court in Hawaii.
So CSUN has the number 6 seed in the up-and-coming conference tournament. They will play the number 3 seed. The good news is for CSUN is that they're not on Long Beach State's path, but the bad news is they're kind of on Hawaii's path. As like I said, Hawaii won their match. And unfortunately for Hawaii, they will not be the Big West Conference regular season champions. However, they did lock up the number 2 seed, and they clinched a first-round bye. So if for some reason CSUN stuns the number 3 seed, CSUN would play Hawaii. It doesn't go lowest seed to facing the highest seed because that would be unfair. So all in all, for CSUN. I feel they need to have consistency on a nightly basis. That is so key if you want to win a volleyball match, especially in the Big West Conference. So for CSUN, like I said, they showed me a lot, but they still have a lot to learn. But overall, it's baby steps. I was told that there was some roster turnover from CSUN. Not going to 100% confirm it, but all in all, for CSUN, I think they have something going on. As long as they can continue to have good recruiting classes, and they keep everyone together, and Jeff continues to do his thing. Like, the dude's been coaching I feel he's been coaching for like 25 years. I'm not entirely certain, but regardless, Campbell has done a great job at CSUN. The record doesn't indicate it, but they have had some good wins. They beat Stanford, they beat UC San Diego as their only conference win at the Rimac Arena. So CSUN is doing good things. It's just all about putting the whole package together, because they also took a set off of Hawaii, if I'm not mistaken. So I feel CSUN is right there. It's just that they kinda have to put everything together. They just cannot afford to play in like certain lapses and give up that many points, because if they didn't fall behind 10-5, I could only imagine what the outcome of that match could have been. Like, obviously, surrendering the first 2 points is a bummer, especially when one of those points was a 100-mile-per-hour Alex Nikolov serve. I'm just over-exaggerating, but all in all, for CSUN, I think they have something going on. They just have to keep it together. Jumping to Saturday's matchup, I actually attended not one, but 2 matches over the weekend, as I went to Hawaii at UC Irvine. This was number 4 Hawaii at number 14 UC Irvine. UC Irvine and Hawaii were both locked in its seeds. UC Irvine is locked in as the number 5 seed, while Hawaii is the number 2 seed, and they will have a first-round bye. Through the first half of the set, Hawaii maintained a healthy lead in set 1. But at the media timeout, UC Irvine took its first lead of the set at 15-14, and they followed that lead up with 3 straight points to go 18-14. UC Irvine actually saw its lead ballooned up to as many as 7 as they took the first set 25-21. That gave UC Irvine fans a lot to cheer about. Though they did need 4 set points, they were very impressive that first set. I really thought Hawaii had the momentum early on, and then UC Irvine just took charge. And that's partially because they hit the ball well, they served the ball well, they did a lot of good things well, and UC Irvine does have a young team. Second set, Irvine jumped out to a 4-1 lead, but Hawaii whittled away at the lead as much as possible, and when trailing 10-7, they scored the next 3 points to tie it up at 10-10, and Hawaii led 16-15, jumping ahead, but then Hawaii took full swing of the second set as they ended the set on a 9-3 run to take set number 2, 25-18. All in all, I think it was like a 10-1 run at one point, as UC Irvine just could not stop the block and the serving and the hitting of Hawaii. And even Brett Sheward was digging practically everything, as Hawaii evened the matchup at 1 set apiece. So the third set was the tightest set of the match. There were 18 ties in the set, and UC Irvine led early on 7-4, and they maintained the lead until Hawaii tied it up at 11-11. And from there, it was the most back-and-forth set I've ever laid eyes on in my years of covering the sport of volleyball. With Hawaii having set point at 25-24 after being unsuccessful at their first set point at 24-23, UC Irvine kept itself in set number 3 by getting a kill that was ruled touched off the block by one of the line judges. Charlie Wade was clearly not happy with that call, and you're probably wondering, why can't he just challenge the call? Oh, let me tell you all this, which is probably going to make you all cringe. UC Irvine sadly did not install a challenge system. They didn't have like cameras for like the referees to go to the table and review. And it was mind-boggling for both UC Irvine fans and Hawaii fans. And Hawaii fans were clearly not happy when it came to that call. I guess it was kind of payback for what happened in the first match, where one swing from from UC Irvine's players was ruled out when it was clearly in. It was right in front of the line judge as it eventually was ruled out. And the first match, Charlie Wade said it would have been great to have a challenging system. But going back to set number 3 where it was tied up at 25-25, Charlie Wade was clearly not happy with the call, and he was fuming. So with it tied up at 25-25, Irvine scored the next 2 points off of a block and winning a joust at the net, which resulted in a Hawaii lift violation as the Anteaters took set 3 27-25. And the mind-blowing thing about UC Irvine in that set was that they had 16 kills off of 32 swings, and they had no hitting errors. That is very impressive from UC Irvine. They really swung for the fences, and it paid off. So Hawaii knew that they needed to get a spark in set 4, and they got one, as they only allowed UC Irvine to lead once, at 1-0. From there, Hawaii had full control of the set, jumping out to a 9-4 lead to force an Anteater timeout. UC Irvine got no closer than 2 points, as Hawaii got a major contribution from Dimitrios Mouchlias from the night, as Hawaii took set number 4, 25-20, and it was cinco sets indeed, as my good friend Jonathan Bates from Off the Block would say. Hawaii hit .462 in that set, holding UC Irvine to only a hitting percentage of .217. Now, set 5, Hawaii jumped out to a 4-1 lead, and they eventually led 7-4. It looked as if they had the match on lock, but a 4-1 run from UC Irvine timed it up at 8-8, and the Anteater fans were jumping out of their seats, trying to get into the heads of Hawaii. But at 9-9, Hawaii went on a 5-0 run, which was mainly due to 4 straight hitting errors. So after Hawaii led 10-9, it was 4 straight hitting errors for UC Irvine, which is something you should never, ever, 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 ever give to Hawaii, as Hawaii needed 3 match points to close the match, but they eventually got it from a bit kill from Chaz Galloway, as Hawaii went home, back to Hawaii, with a 5-set win over UC Irvine, winning set 5, 15-11, as it was a tight matchup, but they were able to grind out the win. Hawaii was led by Dimitrios Mouchlias, who had 31 kills. He hit .510 on the night. He had 31 kills, like I said. Very impressive outing from him. Spiros Chakas had 16 kills. Jakob Thelle and Chaz Galloway each had 5 kills. I feel a little bad for Jakob Thelle and Chaz Galloway, as they were being heckled all night from a pair of UC Irvine students. I don't mean to bring this up, and I shouldn't really bring this up, but UC Irvine students were funny when it came to heckling Jakob Thelle and Chaz Galloway, as one of the UC Irvine students was calling Jakob Thelle Teletubby. I'm sorry, but it was pretty clever. And they were just heckling Chaz all night. And I felt bad for Chaz, but he eventually got the last laugh as he got the final kill to clinch the match for Hawaii. As a team, Hawaii hit .326. They had 37 digs compared to UC Irvine's 32. The blocks were nearly identical, as Hawaii had a half block less than UC Irvine. Yeah, that's right. They had a half block less than UC Irvine. But what really hurt UC Irvine was set 5 and the 8 hitting errors that they had. You cannot have that against a very talented team such as Hawaii. I caught up with Hawaii coach Charlie Wade following his team's win over UC Irvine and his final preparations for the Big West Conference Tournament.
All right, Charlie. This was an intense match as you went 5 with UC Irvine on the road. What did you have to do to dig deep in order to beat UC Irvine after being down 1-2?
Well, they were playing really good, put a ton of service pressure on them. I thought our serve receive got better as the night went on, and we had to stay aggressive serving. I thought our serving early was not good. We missed a lot, weren't putting much pressure on them, but we stayed aggressive and ended up having some nice turns and pulled out a big win on the road.
Dimitrios had himself a monster game, but he also got kills from Jazz and Spiros. What can you say about your offense and how it pretty much just blasted away at the UCI block?
Yeah, I thought we were pretty medium offensively tonight. Dimi did have a nice night, but I thought we could have run the middle more and it would have taken some of the pressure off the outsides. But again, Irvine was putting so much pressure on that, it was pretty limited options that Jake had.
So with this match and last night's match between CSUN and Long Beach State, do you think this shows how deep the Big West can be on a nightly basis?
Well, the Big West has been the best league in college volleyball since inception, right? We hold all the trophies national championships that have been contested since our league started, and this year again just shows, everybody's good.
Now, obviously, the Big West Conference is next week. Last year, you kind of had a little bit of a blip, but you're back home. You're going to have lots of fans. You're the 2 seed. What's it going to take to win the Big West Conference tournament?
Well, we think we're playing at a level right now that we can, just kind of play our style of ball where we put a lot of service pressure on. We're pretty efficient from the service line, and, we're playing our best of the year, so it's the timing for us is pretty good.
And were there any other unsung heroes tonight for you all?
Well, I think Jakob, what he does on the floor, he impacts the game in so many ways as an attacker, and obviously his setting, his serving, he really, I think he really has established him as the premier player in men's collegiate volleyball.
So that was my post-game interview with Charlie Wade. He mentioned Jakob when obviously he's referring to Jakob Thelle. I mentioned on previous shows that I actually told this to Charlie, I accidentally called Jakob, but embarrassingly, in front of the assistant coach, I also told him I called him Jakob Thelle, and he was like, nah, it's Jakob Thelle. So he's referring to Jakob when his name is actually pronounced Jakob, but everyone calls him Jakob. We're trying our best to try to get that name right. Going back to Hawaii stats, Brett Sheward chipped in 14 digs, while Jakob Thelle added 8 digs to go along with his 54 assists. Like I said, he also had 5 kills, and he had 2 service aces. I caught up with Thelle after the match following UC Irvine's after the win over UC Irvine.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Of course, thank you. All right, Jakob. Obviously, this was an intense match. You're down 1-2, but then you managed to dig deep in that 4th set. You broke a 9-9 tie, and you pretty much won in the 5th set. How intense was this game, and what was said after set 3?
It was for sure an intense game. Yeah, huge win for us today. We had to put up a really good fight against a good Irvine team today and play up to our 100%. It was a lot of back and forth between calls, and we just have to kind of see what's working for us after that 3rd set, kind of go back 1 step, reset, and then be aggressive into the next couple sets. That was definitely both ways, but it was a good fight, a good team win for us going into next week Big West tournament.
Dimitrios and Spiros had themselves quite the big games. What can you say about those two and how they stepped up for you all?
I mean, they've been stepping up the game a lot this season, like kind of growing into the positions, growing into responsibilities and roles on the team, and it's a Greek duo, they're Greek sensations, both of them. They're always having good nights, and I can always rely on them. They're getting more consistent, and I just love having them on the team. It's a good atmosphere with them.
Next week is the Big West Conference Tournament. What's it going to take to win the Big West Conference Tournament? Because you're going to be back home in Hawaii, and you basically have some unfinished business in that tournament. So.
We do. And it's a new year for us now. Like, it's been a lot of said that it's a rebuilding year, but I think for us it's more of a re-attacking more, because we definitely have a good team this year as well, and we got the chance to win it. We just got to prove our best game at home. It's going to be epic. A lot of fans back in the stands at home, and we're going to put up our best volleyball so far this season.
And you mentioned being a young team. It looked like y'all were rolling out with like 4 to 5 sophomores, 2 to 3 juniors. What has been the challenging parts of having a young team, and what has been the rewarding parts of having a young team this year?
Yeah, well, it's been a huge learning curve for us all the way, because we had a lot of crucial guys last year with Rado, Colton, Patrick, Gage, and now like this year we have a lot of new starters. So I think just getting into that, kind of growing into our roles again. For me, I've been like taking more of the charge of that team and like how we kind of work together. But it's good, like getting to know guys again, getting after it in the gym, and just work hard together. It's been a whole learning curve for us. We really embraced it all the way. It's been good.
So that was my post-game interview with Jakob Thelle. I should also make note that Guilherme Voss had 7 kills, while Cole Hoagland chipped in 2 kills as well. Overall, Hawaii only had 9 kills in the middle, which is kind of uncharacteristic for them. You heard in the previous interview that Charlie said that they wanted to get the offense going more in the middle as, believe it or not, Megan Trainor's "Why Don't You Just Meet Me in the Middle" was playing in the background while I was interviewing Charlie. But back to what Charlie said, they obviously were medium for the most part in terms of the offense. He was hoping they'd run the middle some more. It would have been great to see Guilherme Voss get some more swings, but 7 kills isn't bad. Third most on the night, which isn't bad. He hit .545, not too shabby. The main culprit when it came to the offense was Dimitrios Mouchlias, who had 31 kills. He hit .510. He had 2 service aces, and he chipped in 4 digs. I caught up with Dimitrios following his team's win over UC Irvine, as I actually interviewed him in a much quieter place.
All right, Dimitrios. So your team is coming off of a big 5-set win over UC Irvine. It was back and forth in that 5th set, but you were able to get a 5-0 run, and then eventually you ran away with it. What were the keys after set 3 to taking set 4 and eventually taking set 5?
We were more focused. We didn't care that much about the game of Irvine, but we focused on our game. We passed the ball well, we set the ball pretty good, and we as attackers hit some high numbers.
Now, obviously, this match and then last night's match between Long Beach State and CSUN have proved that the Big West Conference is no joke and that there are no easy nights. What can you say about the entire Big West Conference and how it's pretty much a battle every time you step on that court on a nightly basis?
I think it's one of the most competitive years for the Big West, and I really believe that everyone can win anyone in this conference. So we have to take everyone seriously and keep doing our job as a team.
Now, Jakob was obviously getting kills himself and getting aces, and then he was also setting the ball for you. What can you say about Jakob and how his leadership has kind of stepped up?
Jakob is a great setter. He's a great guy. He can do everything in the court. He has confidence, and he really helps us all during some difficult times that we may have during a game. He's a great guy.
Now, obviously, the team is fairly young with like sophomores and juniors. What have been some trying times when it comes to having a young team, and what have been some high ups when it comes to having a young team?
First of all, I think that everything is related to our energy. Every time that we have a good energy and we are confident, we're doing really good. And we just have to keep doing that and be confident with ourselves.
Now, you get the winner of CSUN and UC Santa Barbara. You faced both of those teams. Santa Barbara, you went 5 the second go-around. CSUN has been very scrappy. What's it going to take to beat either one of those teams, and what do you plan to do to improve, or what does the team have planned to do in order to improve?
We have many things to improve. We can improve everything in our game. And I think the key will be to, as I said, be confident and play our game as we know it.
So that was my post-game interview with Dimitrios Mouchlias, who led the team in kills with 31. Once again, it was quite an impressive win for Hawaii. Obviously, it's not easy to win at the Bren Event Center. UC Irvine has pulled off wins over Pepperdine and Long Beach State, as honestly, I think Hawaii had to grind that one out. And once again, it just goes to show the depth of the Big West Conference. I think that this win for Hawaii has kind of woken them up to what can really happen if you take a team lightly, because they had this happen last year in the Big West Conference Tournament where they lost to UC San Diego. UC Irvine, on the other hand, was led by Francesco Sani, who had 24 kills. Hilaire Heno chipped in 15 kills. Doug Dom added 6 kills. As a team, UC Irvine only hit .221, and like I said, those hitting errors really came back to bite them in the butt. So for UC Irvine, they're really going to have to turn the tables when it comes to their offense. But I think they have something going. As we say hello to Larry B in the chat room, he says, "Damn, I love this show." I appreciate it, Larry. And he says, "Go Matadors." Well, those CSUN Matadors are going to have to break out some CSUN magic if they want to win the Big West Conference. But like I said earlier, anything is possible when it comes to the Big West Conference. So for UC Irvine, they also got 4 service aces from Hilir Heno, and they also got 11 blocks from Aiden Wolf-Nielsen. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about Aiden. I actually have seen him during his junior college prep days at Orange Coast College. Phenomenal player back when he was at Coast. Unfortunately, he had a hand injury late in the season, and unfortunately for him, it kind of, I wouldn't say it hurt OCC's chances of winning a state championship, and this is no offense to Irvine Valley, the team that beat Orange Coast, but I think Aiden, at full strength, can do some major damage, and I thought he was an unsung hero in my book. Like, he obviously didn't have the kill numbers that Francesco and Hilir had, but those blocking numbers, he had 1 solo block and he had his hand in 9 block assists. It was very impressive, and I think Aiden has a bright future ahead of him, and I hope he can continue to do this volleyball thing going forward. I actually caught up with UC Irvine men's volleyball coach David Kniffin following his team's loss, as I briefly interviewed him about the loss and what's it going to take to upend UC San Diego, UC Irvine's next opponent, as well as some other positives this season.
All right, Coach. It was a great battle tonight against number 4 Hawaii. Fell a little short in 5 sets. What were some things that stood out to you tonight on your senior night?
The first thing is that's the second time that this lineup has played together as a starting unit. Last night being the first time, just because we've had a lot of changes in our lineup due to mostly injuries, really. So I was proud of that effort and the fact that we were better tonight than we were last night. The second thing that always stands out on senior night is just that this is about a bigger journey than just winning and losing matches. Obviously, we're going to play to win. And looking around the room at the alumni that were here tonight visiting and supporting our seniors gives me a sense of what this journey and the purpose of it is really about.
Now, obviously with this match and obviously with CSUN and Long Beach State having gone 5, what can you say about the depth of the Big West Conference and how it's pretty much a battle when it comes to 2 of the teams in the conference facing one another?
It really does feel like anyone can beat anyone.
All right, and then when it comes to the Big West Conference tournament, it's next week. You are the 5 seed. You're facing UC San Diego. What's it going to take to topple the Tritons?
Yeah, I think, for us, it's like usual. It's really on our side of the net. How can we get our offense going? And that's the one place that we've, been kind of up and down, hot and cold through the years, is the offensive part of it. I think we do a pretty good job of serving. With this lineup, we can do an exceptional job of block defense. So really, it'll just come down to our side-out game.
Who stood out to you in your eyes, or was it just a team effort tonight?
On the other side or our side?
Your side.
Well, on our side, it's just cool to see Francesco get more and more comfortable on the right side of the court and just, kind of generating kills from anything we give him. But I was also just really impressed with the overall play of everyone.
Francesco Sani is his name. Number 11. So that was my post-game interview with David Kniffin. Obviously, he knows that anyone can beat anyone. I liked his little response. It was short, sweet, and to the point. He said, I feel like anybody can beat anyone on a nightly basis. And it kind of reminds me of a Bill Belichick type of answer. And I love it. So, obviously, it was a tough loss for UC Irvine, but I feel they have some upside. And the good thing for UC Irvine is that they're on Long Beach State's side of the bracket. And now you're probably thinking, well, Teran, hasn't Long Beach State practically thrashed everybody? No. Long Beach State will get the winner of UC San Diego and UC Irvine. What does UC Irvine and UC San Diego have in common? I'll give you all a little bit to answer that question. Okay, time's up. UC Irvine and UC San Diego are the only two teams to hand Long Beach State a conference loss this season. So, all in all, I think this is a good thing for UC Irvine and UC San Diego to possibly get another shot at Long Beach State, because Hilaire Heno served up a storm. Like, that dude has probably a wicked serve. I talked about Alex Nikolov and Simon Torwey's serves on Long Beach State. His serve is a freaking cannon, and if you're not ready for it, then it's going to be a service ace, and you might as well just get an ice pack for your arms. Either way, I think UC Irvine has some upside to them. My biggest concern is, can they win at Hawaii? They've obviously been so great at the Bren Event Center. However, they're going to the Stan Sheriff Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. They're basically in a hostile environment. They're playing UC San Diego, and they eventually could get Long Beach State. So that's my biggest concern. Can they win away from the Bren? My answer to that question is maybe. Now, obviously, you all heard what Kniffin said. He said that this is actually the first time they've had the starting lineup together. Obviously, due to injuries and other things happening. So, all in all, for UC Irvine, it's just going to basically come down to a team effort. And it's basically going to be cleaning up their boo-boos that they had. Like, they missed 14 serves. Like I said, those 23 hitting errors with 8 of them coming in set number 5, you can't do that. The thing about Hawaii is that they only hit 63 in set number 5, but a good chunk of Hawaii's points came off of errors from UC Irvine. So UC Irvine cannot afford to spoon feed its opponent free points, because 8 hitting errors in set 5 is basically half the set right there. And UC Irvine knows better, and obviously it's rough, but I think for them, Francesco and Hilaire can definitely do damage. Jumping on over to the MIVA, and we're actually going to try to speed through this. So we actually had the MIVA quarterfinals happening last weekend, and we had quite a good amount of decent results. Obviously, Ball State dispatched Quincy, and Loyola swept Lindenwood. So, for Purdue-Fort Wayne versus McKendree, I thought this was probably the most interesting matchup of the quarterfinals. So, Purdue-Fort Wayne coming off of a battle against Ball State where they fell in 4 sets, while McKendree having an up-and-down season, which has seen them beat Loyola, but then fall to another opponent. So, for the first set, Purdue-Fort Wayne came out hot out the gate, jumping out to a 9-3 lead, and it appears it was going to be a blowout in that first set. McKendree slowly and surely chipped away at the lead, and eventually they tied the set at 19-19. And at 21-21, PFW scored the next 2 points to go up 23-21. They had 2 set points when leading 24-22, but the Bearcats had claws and clawed their way back into set 1, tying it up at 24-24. But on the next point, they missed their serve, and following that, PFW ended the set with a kill from Cody Johnson, as the Mastodons took set 1, 26-24. Set 2 early on, it looked as if it was going to be another tight set. It was tied at 6-6, but PFW went on a 4-0 run to put them up 10-6. The Mastodons actually had no intention of slowing down, as the lead stretched to as many as 8 points. And despite McKendree getting to within 3 at 23-20, PFW took the second set 25-20, and just like that, all the McKendree fans in Lebanon were stunned at what was going on through the first 2 sets. They were wondering, why is our team losing? So set 3, it was early on until PFW took a 9-6 lead. Needing a spark to stay in the match, McKendree retook the lead at 11-10, and to the Bearcats' credit, they actually maintained the lead for the most part, despite the Mastodons staying within striking distance. McKendree led 24-21, but PFW scored the next 2 points to get within 1. However, Ethan Carroll made sure the match continued as he hammered down a kill to give McKendree set 3, 25-23, as we did see a 4th set. Set 4, McKendree needed to build off its momentum in set 3, and they did as they led 12-9. They maintained the lead for the most part until PFW tied it up at 18-18. And suddenly, they were back in it. PFW took its first lead of the set at 21-20, only to see it being tied up again. With PFW trailing 22-21, everyone's thinking, oh, this one's going to go 5. Well, Zach Solomon had other plans, as he had probably the most craziest dump kill, which really caught McKendry off guard. I'm surprised McKendry let that one fall, because it was a very far dump kill. It wasn't like it was in close. It was, I think, Solomon was like maybe 2 feet away from the net. I don't know how to describe it without making a fool of myself, but he had an amazing dump kill which really caught McKendry off guard. So it was 22-22, and I think that dump kill was the turning point right there, because that sparked the Mastodons to win the next 3 points, and what was looking like the match was going to go 5, it saw Purdue-Fort Wayne pulling off the upset in Lebanon over McKendry, ending their season, and advancing to the MIVA semifinals, where they will get Loyola of Chicago at Loyola. So, for Purdue-Fort Wayne, they were led by John Diedrich and Vincent Ibarra, who each had 18 kills. Cade Bottrigger added 8 kills. As a team, Purdue-Fort Wayne hit 317. They had 48 digs compared to McKendry's 42. Purdue-Fort Wayne outblocked McKendry a whopping 11-7, which isn't really that much, but well. They held McKendry to only 231 in terms of hitting percentage, as McKendry was led by Ethan Carroll and Patrick Ross, who each had 20 kills. Kevin Shuley chipped in 12 digs, and Ryan Serrano added 10 digs to go along with his 45 assists. Cade Bottrigger added 19 digs, which was very impressive. And then Solomon added 11 digs to go along with his 2 kills and his 45 assists. But it wasn't enough for McKendry. McKendry, unfortunately, could not have Patrick Ross and Ethan Carroll see another match, as Patrick Ross and Ethan Carroll will finish tied for the most kills in a single season, as they each recorded 327 kills, which passed Jared Wilcox's 320 kills in 2015. Ross actually finished his career with 980 kills and 79 service aces, and will graduate as the school record holder in both of those categories. The Bearcats also finished with a school record of 14 wins and recorded their 3rd straight winning season. Not bad, honestly, and I feel their future looks bright, but replacing Patrick Ross is going to be very tough, along with Ethan Carroll. But I think the Bearcats have something impressive going on. So McKendry's season comes to an end as Purdue-Fort Wayne advances to face Loyola. Now this other one, I'm not going to go in depth on this. Ohio State, oh my goodness. I've bagged on Lewis quite a bit this season. I went on rants. I basically ripped them a new one. But Lewis really showed a lot of grit in this match as they reverse swept Ohio State. They were down 0-2, having dropped the first 2 sets 25-19 and 29-27. They won the 3rd set 25-23. They won the 4th set 25-19. And then set 5, despite trailing 3-1 to start the set, they won that 5th set 15-10, as they actually wound up scoring the last 3 points. And my goodness, Lewis, I was very impressed with how they were able to pull out that victory. They were led by John Davis, who had 16 kills, while Christian Prayer added 15 kills. Max Roque added 10 kills, while Tyler Mitchum only had 9 kills. Finally, we're getting to see Lewis play some hero ball, distribution ball, instead of just having Tyler Mitchum just carry the team night in and night out. Christian Prayer also chipped in 12 digs, and Jason Gibbs also added 10 digs. As a team, Lewis hit 361, which was darn right impressive. Their worst set came in that first set, but other than that, they only had 9 hitting errors altogether. They had 0 in that 5th set, as Ohio State was led by Samuel Clark and Jacob Pasteur, who each had 23 kills. Pasteur hit 436, while Clark hit 364. Martin Lallemand added 11 kills, as Ohio State hit 295 on the night. Both teams surprisingly had 5 service aces and 19 service errors. Both teams had 4 solo blocks. The only difference was that Lewis outblocked Ohio State 9.5. 13.5 to 9.5. And both teams had 39 digs. So all in all for Lewis, they saw their season nearly coming to an end at home, and they advanced to the semifinals where they will play Ball State, which is very impressive. So good for the Flyers. So some other NCAA men's volleyball quick hits as we're 1 hour into this thing. Penn State finished a perfect 16-0 in the EIVA, beating Charleston in 4 sets. They did not drop a match at home in the regular season, as the EIVA will be going right through Penn State, as they will be the host of the EIVA tournament. USC locked up the number 2 seed in the MPSF tournament, beating Grand Canyon on the road twice. They beat him once via reverse sweep on Friday, and they beat him the second time on Saturday via straight sets, which was very impressive. Winning at Grand Canyon is not easy, especially since that had a lot of implications. Now USC gets to play Concordia of Irvine in the quarterfinals of the MPSF tournament. UCLA has a bye, while Grand Canyon will face Stanford in the MPSF tournament, while Pepperdine and BYU will lock horns with one another. And as I mentioned earlier in the UC Irvine Hawaii second match, UC Santa Barbara defeated UC San Diego in 4 sets to lock up the number 3 seed in the Big West Conference tournament. The Tritons are the number 4 seed, as they will play UC Irvine, while UC Santa Barbara locks horn with CSUN. So that is the NCAA men's volleyball recap of the last regular season of the week. So, yeah, I kind of went... I feel embarrassed doing this. I went over an hour, but we'll try to shorten this out as much as I can. So, there wasn't too much change in the AVCA coaches poll, as there was only one little change. As Gina says, great show, Teran, and she says she has to go. She has to watch the Warriors. Well, good luck to your Warriors, Gina, and have fun watching the Warriors in the Nuggets. And she says, Teran ceases to amaze me with the amount of work he puts into his show, and both shows. I appreciate that, Gina. So, back to the AVCA men's volleyball coaches poll. 15 through 11 consists of Purdue of Fort Wayne at 15, UC Irvine at 14, Stanford at 13, Lewis at 12, and Loyola of Chicago at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Grand Canyon at 10, UC San Diego at 9, Pepperdine at 8, Ball State at 7, and UC Santa Barbara at 6. 5 through 1 consists of USC at 5, Hawaii at 4, Long Beach State at 3, Penn State at 2, and your still number 1 team in the AVCA men's volleyball coaches poll is UCLA, which is no surprise, just because UCLA is UCLA. So that's going to do it for the NCAA men's volleyball portion of the show. We're actually going to take ourselves a quick commercial break. But when we come back, I promise you all I'll try not to go too long when it comes to the next segments. I have some beach volleyball talk, some NCAA beach volleyball talk, along with some pro beach volleyball talk. Then we also have some 3C2A men's volleyball action, as 2 of our former guests on Set Point are into the semifinals, where they will face one another with their teams. And then we also have the NCAA men's volleyball conference tournaments going on. Who will come out on top in my eyes? You'll have to find out when we return. So you're listening to Set Point here on IX Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all the sports. Definitely do check out the Show That Never Sleeps podcast with Harrison Glazer and Pierre Moss. They do a great job of talking New York sports. Also check out Chi-Town Weekly, which comes on 1 hour before Set Point. Adam Karnick does a great job of talking all things Chicago sports. And like I mentioned, Loyola of Chicago is in the semifinals of the MIVA Tournament, so he'll probably be talking about that soon, hopefully. And he'll also be talking about the Chicago Untouchables. Back with segment number 2, we'll be jumping into some NCAA Beach Volleyball action. So this past weekend was quite the interesting weekend when it came to the Center of Courage Challenge, or whatever it's called. Yeah, Center of Effort Challenge. I keep getting Center of Effort and Center of Courage mixed up. But the Center of Effort Challenge did not cease to amaze, as Cal Poly was the host school, or the host team, as this took place in San Luis Obispo. So, between Cal Poly, USC, UCLA, Florida State, and Loyola Marymount, or LMU, those were your participants that played in the Center of Effort Challenge. Before I continue, I definitely have to make note of the new AVCA, or the most recent AVCA Beach Volleyball Coaches Poll. So, for Week 7, 20 through 16 consisted of Florida Gulf Coast at 20, Stetson at 19, South Carolina at 18, Arizona at 17, and Pepperdine at 16. 15 through 11 consists of Florida International, or FIU, at 15, Georgia State at 14, Cal Poly at 13, Cal at 12, Long Beach State at 11. 10 through 6 consisted of Florida Atlantic, or FAU, at 10, Stanford at 9, Hawaii at 8, Grand Canyon at 7, and Loyola Marymount, or LMU, at 6. 5 through 1 consisted of LSU at 5, Florida State at 4, UCLA at 3, TCU at 2, and your still number 1 team in the AVCA Beach Volleyball Coaches Poll is USC. So that's basically your top 20 coaches poll. So jumping back to the Center of Effort Challenge. So honestly, it was business as usual for USC. They had the best weekend, hands down. They went a perfect 4-0, and here's how it went. So USC actually had a close start to the weekend as they barely edged out LMU. Now, obviously LMU is a fairly underrated team. I think LMU doesn't get the respect that it deserves just because it's not in the same conference as USC and UCLA. But we all have to remember that LMU did finish third in the NCAA tournament last season, as they were behind UCLA and USC. They were basically like little sister, which to me I think is impressive because all three of those teams are Southern California, but I digress. So for LMU, they gave USC all that they could handle, but it all came down to the number 1 pairs, and Haley Harward and Tina Gradina are just the dynamic duo. Like, those two are in junction with one another. They just mesh so well, as USC barely edged LMU 3-2 in that meet. The second meet, of Friday was a lot smoother as USC toppled Cal Poly 5-0. Obviously, it was a much smoother match for the Trojans. Jumping to Saturday, USC took on its rival UCLA, the only team to hand itself a loss, or to hand them a loss. And this one was surprisingly not as close as the first matchup was. So, through the first two pair matches, to the first two meets, I'm sorry, not the meets, the first two matches, USC went up 2-0. They swept both of UCLA's pairs. I think it was the 1-3 pair that won first, and then the Norse twins, Audrey and Nicole, won their matchup, and just like that, USC defeated UCLA 3-0, but the last two matches went on, and UCLA eventually wound up winning one of those two matches as USC won the overall meet against UCLA 4-1, and that was kind of a statement win for USC. So for USC to pull off that type of win, it's very, 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 very impressive. I really think that the Trojans are showing why they are the new number one, and I think they're really getting back to the groove. Now, I say that as their final matchup was against Florida State, and obviously coming off of a big win over your rival, it's obviously tough because it's a quick turnaround, and you're facing another talented team such as Florida State. However, USC, oh my goodness, they beat Florida State 5-0. They swept them. They didn't sweep their matches, but they just beat them in both of their matches, the entire meet. They didn't lose a meet. They didn't lose a match. They swept them 5-0. I was downright impressed. I couldn't believe that it was just that lopsided. I thought it was going to be a little bit more, I wouldn't say competitive, but I honestly thought that it was going to be more, I thought Florida State was going to take a set off of USC. So I'm rather baffled that Florida State had such an off day against USC, but overall, I think it was pretty good. I think it was a very good weekend for USC, and this shows why they're number one, and they're going to be a unanimous number one come tomorrow. Because remember, Tuesday is the day that the coaches poll comes out, and unfortunately, Set Point goes live on Mondays, and I can't predict the future. So as for the other teams, Loyola Marymount had themselves quite a good weekend as well, as they went 3-1. Like I said, their only loss came at the hands of USC, which they fought tooth and nail against. But their next matchup against UCLA, they actually fought tooth and nail, and they actually came out on top. They actually clinched the meet after the fourth matchup was done. So by the time they clinched the meet, they were up 3-1, and whether they won or lost the final matchup, they wound up winning that match 3-2. And I was very impressed with LMU the entire weekend. They also beat Florida State 3-2, and they also beat Cal Poly, which is no surprise. No offense, Cal Poly, but no, I really think that LMU is much better. And there's a reason why they're number 6. Just because I feel LMU has so much talent, but they're so underrated. I think they don't get a whole lot of respect when it comes to the NCAA beach volleyball scene. That's partially because they're not Pac-12, but to me, I think that LMU is on the rise, and I think they've got something special going on. So keep an eye out for the Lions of LMU. Now, as for UCLA, it was a rough weekend for them. Obviously, they beat Cal Poly, which they started their weekend off by beating Cal Poly with ease, with the greatest of ease. But then their second matchup against Florida State, they kind of had trouble closing them out. It actually came down to the final matchup when it came to facing Florida State, and UCLA was able to win that matchup in 3 sets, and they won the entire meet 3-2. So the next day was a little bit brutal as LMU LMU unfortunately kind of socked it to them, and I'm actually getting my matches mixed up, but like I said, USC beat UCLA, which I kind of was surprised UCLA lost after the first 3 meets. And then they obviously beat Cal Poly, and they edged Florida State. The loss to LMU was a little bit shocking, but it kind of just shows that LMU has potential. They still have something left in the tank. So all in all, for LMU or for UCLA, I think this weekend kind of wakes up the bear, just because UCLA actually plays LMU this week. I think it's on Wednesday. I'm not entirely certain, but either way, we're going to see some fireworks. And yes, it is going to be on Wednesday. And I'm really excited to see what UCLA and LMU can do against one another. It's not going to be like a full day where you're facing one match and then you've got another, then you turn in for the day, then you face another match, and then another match. It's not going to be like that. So I think for LMU and UCLA, I think it's going to be a barn burner on Wednesday. Now, Florida State, I really am shocked that they had themselves such an off weekend. They looked very flat against USC. LMU, I was very surprised they laid an egg against. They narrowly escaped against Cal Poly, though I'm surprised they allowed Cal Poly to get it that close. I'm surprised they won 3-2. But then again, that could be because Cal Poly is resilient as heck. And then they barely lost to UCLA. The UCLA loss, I'm actually quite impressed on. It's just that the other matches kind of leave a bad taste in my mouth. And keep in mind, Florida State beat LSU and TCU last week. So they went 2 steps forward, but then they went 10 steps backward this weekend. 2 steps forward last weekend, and then 10 steps forward this weekend, which I think for me, I don't know what to say about Florida State. Now, in Florida State's defense, they were the only team that came from out of California. They had to go from Florida all the way over to San Luis Obispo. Things probably happened. So I'm willing to come to the defense of Florida State, but it wasn't their weekend. Fortunately for them, they get a chance that they don't have any matches in terms of the regular season. They get a chance to heal up, rest, prepare themselves for the conference tournament. Just because if they want to go deep, they're going to have to do well in that conference tournament, and if they do well in that conference tournament, I still think they can possibly hang with the USCs and the UCLAs and the TCUs and the LMUs, and you get the point. So all in all, for Florida State, this was obviously a weekend they'd like to flush down the toilet, but they have time to rest up, prepare, practice, see how their competition is, maybe scout, all that stuff. And then for Cal Poly, it kind of goes without saying, I feel bad for them just because they're facing 4 top 6 teams. 4 top 6 teams. The fact that they were able to hold their own against Florida State is quite impressive. So, all in all, for the Mustangs, it's just another learning curve. This will obviously help them going forward, kind of like how Long Beach State scheduled very tough early in the season. So that's kind of the center of effort in a nutshell right there. So a few little news tidbits to go over. Haley Harward collected her 100th individual win. She actually has 56 at USC, but she has 100 overall. So great job to Haley Harward. I had the honor of covering her in her senior year at Long Beach State. It was a great feat for her. And all in all, it was just a great weekend for USC overall in terms of beach volleyball. Now, they obviously should not be satisfied. They obviously have more Pac-12 meets coming up. They have the Pac-12 tournament, and I'm fairly certain they're going to play UCLA fairly soon. I want to say UCLA is coming up on their radar. I'm 95% certain USC plays UCLA one last time. And they do. They do meet against one another on Friday. And that's actually going to be the final tune-up for USC and UCLA, as both teams are going to be playing in the Pac-12 Championship next Wednesday, and that's going to be a barn burner right there. It's going to be played in Tucson, Arizona. It's actually going to be played at Bear Down Beach, which I think is a very clever name. So there is that right there when it comes to some beach volleyball. Larry says, talk about the first 3 years of NCAA beach volleyball. Who were those first 3 champions? I want to say, okay, so the first time NCAA beach volleyball was a thing, it wasn't an actual NCAA sanctioned championship, which is kind of disappointing. Like, you have to go back to like 2013 when Long Beach State was the first ever champion, which is kind of cool if you ask me. Like, for me, Long Beach State was able to basically, be the top dog, and then Pepperdine was a thing, and then all in all, it started to become a full thing. Then it started to become NCAA sanctioned back in 2016. That's when it fully started to get into the groove, where USC was the official NCAA, the first ever sanctioned NCAA champion, where they beat Florida State, and then I guess UCLA got third. And then in 2017, USC was able to defeat Pepperdine. I remember watching that matchup. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be intense. Can Pepperdine actually dethrone USC? No, USC was able to repeat as champions because they're USC. And then Hawaii got third over Florida State. UCLA was the 2018 champion as they beat Florida State 3-1. And then Hawaii was the third place representative over USC, who finished fourth. I'm sorry, USC fans. And then UCLA repeated as back-to-back champions as they defeated USC in the 2019 championship 3-0, as it was obviously a rough one for USC fans, but UCLA had a stacked team. Like, UCLA was really stacked that year. I could not believe how talented they were. Like, ooh, Nelly. And I remember Abby Van Winkle was the one that clinched the match for them. And she was only a freshman. Only a freshman. And then we obviously have USC defeating UCLA last year in the NCAA championship. And when I saw Haley Harward clinching the match for USC off of a service ace, I was very impressed. I was like, yes, Haley Harward, starting out at Long Beach State, is a champion. So, great job right there for the past winners, and those are the NCAA sanctioned championships. Now, I could obviously go over the past champions like Florida State and Pepperdine and Long Beach State, but for time constraint purposes, that was kind of your NCAA beach volleyball history 101 lesson for me. So jumping over to to pro beach volleyball, we actually had quite the accomplishment for a former USC Trojan. Sarah Hughes, teaming up with Kelly Kolinsky, won gold in, I'm probably going to butcher this, Itapema. They won gold in Itapema, and I was rather happy. For those of you that don't know who Sarah Hughes was, she was a freaking beast at USC. And she has been teaming up with lots of partners, such as Kelly Clace, and I think there were rumors saying that she wanted to team up with April Ross, but she didn't want to. But she's kind of been through a whirlwind of partners, but she has settled in with Kelly Kolinsky, who is a former Pepperdine standout, as the two were able to win their beach volleyball tournament this past weekend on Easter weekend, as they won the Itapema Challenge, as they swept their final matchup. So they actually went unbeaten the entire weekend, which was quite impressive. But it's not overly surprising just because Sarah Hughes has that experience as a beach volleyball player. Kelly Kolinsky, obviously, she's not as well known as Sarah Hughes, but she's starting to mesh well with Sarah, and it's rather impressive. So as for Corrine Quiggle and Sarah Schermerhorn, both of those two that represented the U.S. gained an advantage in the World Championships berth. So they basically are guaranteed to have a World Championship berth, which is awesome sauce. And then in I'm going to butcher this name, Songkhla, Andy Benish and Miles Evans finished silver in Songkhla, as they were able to get to the final, but unfortunately they fell short. But either way, they had a great run. So that's kind of your pro beach volleyball roundup right there. Now jumping over to some 3C2A men's volleyball. So the California Community College Athletic Association doesn't have an actual state championship. It's just a SoCal Regional, which is frustrating. Now, I don't know if it is sanctioned as a state championship, but the whole tournament just got underway this past weekend, as Long Beach City is the top seed, Orange Coast College is the second seed, Irvine Valley is the 3 seed, El Camino, the host school of the semifinals and finals, is the 4 seed, San Diego Miramar was the 5 seed, Santa Monica was the 6 seed, Moore Park was the 7 seed, and San Diego Mesa was the 8 seed. And all those first round matches in the quarterfinals wound up resulting in the higher seed sweeping the lower seed. Yes, I was very surprised. Long Beach swept San Diego Mesa on Friday. I feel bad for Long Beach City just because they've gone through a whirlwind of a season. Like, later, in the final week of the season, they were actually supposed to play El Camino, but then, unfortunately, they kind of caught COVID, and they had to postpone their matchup against El Camino to last Tuesday. They had to play that matchup. Then the brackets all came out. Long Beach City was the 1 seed, and Orange Coast was the 2 seed. I'm not going to go in depth and share why Orange Coast got the 2 seed instead of the 1 seed, even though they've been number 1 all season long, but I don't know. I'm not a part of the committee. I'm not going to share why they got the 2 seed, but Orange Coast has been on a tear as of recent. They swept Moore Park at home. They have not lost a match at home, as their only loss came at Long Beach City in 5 sets, and they weren't even at full strength. So, all in all, for Orange Coast, they are the number 2 seed. They'll be playing Irvine Valley, the number 3 seed. Now, what's so special about Irvine Valley and Orange Coast, you ask? Well, their coaches, Ryan Windish of Irvine Valley and Travis Turner of Orange Coast, are basically former guests on Set Point. And they're really both really nice men, honestly. So, all in all, it's going to feel heartbreaking to see one team lose. And here's the thing for the matchup. Obviously, I'm an Orange Coast fan. I went to Orange Coast College, but I do have to acknowledge the amazing postseasons that Irvine Valley has put together the past 2 years. Obviously, last year was a shortened season, and then the 3C2A back in 2019 where Irvine Valley stunned the number 1 seed, Orange Coast, was quite phenomenal. So, for Irvine Valley, this could probably be their match, as in the past couple of years in the postseason, they've gotten the better of Orange Coast despite losing twice in the regular season to Orange Coast. It's going to be a great matchup. I'm expecting a barn burner. The first semifinal between Orange Coast and Irvine Valley is at 5 p.m. Pacific time. The second semifinal between El Camino and Long Beach City is at 7 p.m. All in all, it's going to be a great matchup. But once again, I am going to feel bad for the school that doesn't win between Orange Coast and Irvine Valley, especially the coach, considering both those teams have worked hard to get back to the 3C2A championship. So it's really going to be a bummer. I kind of wish, this is kind of where I wish Orange Coast was the 1 seed and Irvine Valley was still the 3 seed. Then the two would at worst meet in the finals. But all in all, what can you do? So that's kind of that for the 3C2A men's volleyball. talk right there. There are only 8 teams. Like I said, there's no state tournament. It's only just Southern California. It's not NorCal versus SoCal, which kind of makes me sad face, but what can you do? So now, jumping into the NCAA men's volleyball conference tournaments, and then I'll let you all go for the night. So, it is conference tournament time, and we might as well just go over my predictions to who's going to win what conference tournament. So, let's start with the MIVA, considering that's pretty much the one that's going on right now. So, the MIVA tournament, we have Ball State and Lewis in the semifinals, while Loyola of Chicago and Purdue of Fort Wayne are in the other semifinal. I'm going to say Ball State wins the MIVA championship over Loyola. I'm not going to say how many sets. I just think Ball State is going to win the MIVA. Jumping over to the MPSF. Actually, no. I'll save the MPSF for later, but to the EIVA, this one's kind of a no-brainer, and I feel bad for saying this. I think Penn State is obviously going to roll through the EIVA tournament. I'm not trying to say everyone else is playing for second. It's just that Penn State is playing on a whole nother level. They returned all of their team from last year, and they have unfinished business. They're the number 2 team in the nation, and they have not lost at Rec Hall all season. The only team that has been close to pretty much trying to take Penn State down in terms of the EIVA was NJIT, which I think will make the final. I think the final is Penn State NJIT, and then the championship, excuse me a second. And then the championship will be, or the champion will be Penn State over NJIT. Like I said, I think NJIT has potential. I think they can get to the finals. They obviously have to take on a very tough Harvard team who has resurged after their season was canceled thanks to the NCAA canceling the entire season of the Ivy League, of every Ivy League sport, which was absolutely ridiculous, but I digress. But all in all, I think that Penn State is just playing on a whole nother level, and again, it's nothing against NJIT or the other EIVA schools, but Penn State is just really good, man. And especially playing at Rec Hall, it's just, I don't think there's a team that has an answer for them. Their only losses were on the road. Well, 2 of them were at the neutral, well, no. One was at a neutral site, which was USC versus Penn State at Pauley Pavilion, and then the other was at Santa Barbara, and the other was at UCLA. And both Penn State had to play both those host schools. So jumping to the Conference of Carolinas, now I have to include this conference just because they're a conference that gets an automatic berth, but I'm going to go with North Greenville. I think North Greenville has had most consistency. I think they'll beat Mount Olive in the final. It's going to be a barn burner, but I think North Greenville puts it all together. The Conference of Carolinas is kind of an unpredictable conference just because there's not really a standout-ish team, might I add. There's not that UCLA, that Long Beach State, that Hawaii, that USC, that Penn State, that Ball State, that Lewis, that you get the point. So I'm picking North Greenville over Mount Olive to win, just because I think North Greenville is a little bit more consistent. I think Mount Olive is good. They've kind of been the kryptonite of, I want to say they've been the kryptonite of North Greenville, but to me, I think North Greenville puts it all together and wins it. Jumping over to the MPSF, now, oh man, I really hate to pick this. The final will be UCLA versus USC. Nothing against the other MPSF schools. I think the MPSF is deep, but it's not as talented as it's been in the past. BYU is down. Concordia has been an off and on switch. Grand Canyon has been hit or miss sometimes in the MPSF. The only team that I think may have a shot at denying us the UCLA-USC MPSF final is Stanford. I think Stanford is the dark horse to win that MPSF championship. But other than that, I think UCLA-USC is your MPSF final. And I really hate to say this, but UCLA beats USC in the final. First of all, it's going to be at Pauley Pavilion. UCLA has only lost one match at Pauley all season. And I think UCLA is just a little bit more deeper than USC. I'm not trying to say USC is bad, but can USC put together a consistent match on the biggest stage of their season? And it's crucial for USC just because they could get an at-large. Like, I feel if USC gets to the MPSF final, they'll be an at-large guaranteed. I'm making that prediction right now. I think USC, if they make it to the MPSF final, they're an at-large for the tournament. Because there are only 2 at-larges. And there's a lot of good teams that could be left out of the NCAA tournament. But I think if USC makes it to the MPSF tournament, they're not going to be, or makes it to the MPSF tournament championship, they're not going to be left out. They're in that safety zone. Because USC has been consistent most of the season. It's just that they did have that one blip against Stanford and that one blip against Pepperdine, but they've kind of exceeded expectations. I feel USC wasn't picked high to win the MPSF. I think they were picked to finish like in the middle of the pack compared to like Grand Canyon and UCLA and Pepperdine. So for USC, they're exceeding expectations, and let's hope that they can keep it up for their sake. Now for the last conference, the Big West Conference, and I've kind of covered this conference quite a bit. I've seen every Big West team at least once. So this is going to be a very tricky conference to predict. Last year we had the unimaginable final, UC Santa Barbara versus UC San Diego, which UC Santa Barbara won that one, but oh boy. I think anyone can win the Big West Conference tournament. But for me, the championship is going to be Long Beach State, Hawaii. And I think Long Beach State barely inches their way against Hawaii. Now, I'm not trying to say Hawaii is bad. I just think Long Beach State has so much firepower on their side. And even though they are going to be playing in the very, very loud Stan Sheriff Center, I think Long Beach State has those players. Like Alex Nikolov is that guy. Spencer Olivier is that guy. Their middles are starting to get back together. Simon Torwey and Shane Holdaway are a two-headed monster in the middle. Clark Godbold has been playing well as a pin hitter. Aiden Knipe has set up the offense really well. Hawaii has that potential. I think they are a year... If this were 1 year later, I'd probably pick Hawaii. But for Hawaii, they have great players. They have Spiros Chakas. They have Jakob Thelle, Chaz Galloway, Guillerme Voss. You get the point. So I think for Hawaii, it's going to be a barn burner. That's all I'm going to pretty much say. But those are my 5 teams that will get into the NCAA tournament as an automatic qualifier. As for the 2 at-larges, I'm picking USC and Hawaii. I think UC Santa Barbara is the last 4, or the first one out, just because that loss to USC or those 3 losses to USC are kind of going to come back to haunt them. And I think Loyola kind of gets left out. I think they're the second one out. So I think that's kind of where the buck stops for them. So, all in all, that's kind of your bracketology. I'm not the best bracketologist, but remember, NCAA men's volleyball is not as deep as NCAA women's volleyball. So, all in all, for NCAA men's volleyball and its conference tournaments, that is going to do it right there. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for Set Point for this week. I know I went past 100 minutes, but what can you do? There's a lot of volleyball going on. Without any further delay, let us drop that beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you to those that I interviewed this past weekend when it came to Hawaii, CSUN, Long Beach State, and UC Irvine. I really do appreciate those players and coaches that I interviewed that took time out of their night, whether they won or lost, for letting me interview. I also got to give a shout to Lindy Zamora, the SID of Long Beach State, for putting me on the list when it came to all the Long Beach State matches. I hope to provide some Big West Conference tournament coverage this weekend. I'm a very busy boy. We'll have to see. I hope to be a part of the post-game press conference. Time will tell. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You all have yourself a great rest of the evening. You all have yourself a great rest of the week. I will be back this weekend for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. It has returned. For now, you all have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action. High school volleyball in California is starting to wind down. That's going to probably be the topic for next week's show. So I'll see you all then, and be on the lookout for possible interviews with some possible coaches on the NCAA men's volleyball side and on the 3C2A side. But have a great week, everybody. Peace!